Welcome to Sutures and Cents, where Tegaderm meets Top Line and Surgiflow meets soft costs in ambulatory surgery centers and hospital ORs. We talk clinical to business people and business to clinical people. I'm Mark Copeland. He's Ryan Pistone. We are Sutures and Cents. So, Ryan, we're going to jump into part 2 of our interview with Seth Turnoff of Custom Medical Marketing. He's the guy, if you recall, with the great mustache and hyper-targeted patient acquisition digital campaigns that basically get you, surgeons, in front of your ideal patient before they need you, so that when they do need you, they're already calling you. Right? Did I have that right, Ryan? How did I do on that? That wasn't bad.
Yes, it's like super personalized ad targeting.
Yeah. Affirmations, baby.
Yeah.
Let's jump into part 2 with our buddy Seth Turnoff. Yeah. How'd you end up getting into this, by the way?
I love that question. So before this, I was in revenue cycle, right? I was part of a billing company, did a great job at collecting. And it was like my first actual foray into healthcare. And I was on a denial management team. So they put me on this team, and it was my job to fight the insurance companies to try to get these claims paid for our physicians, our clients, our groups, our MSOs that were, a part of this billing organization. And I learned real quickly that, man, it's so frustrating. And I would come home from work and I would be so aggravated and frustrated. And it's silly that it got to me because I'm just here to do this job. But no, it didn't make sense to me. And I would complain to my wife, and she's like, first of all, why are you getting so upset about this? And I'm like, because it doesn't make any sense. I call the same company. I talk to 3 different reps about the same denial. I'm going to get 3 different responses on how to treat this. I have to fax in the paperwork to this number. Nope, mail it. No, we need to fill out this form and put it as a cover letter, and it needs to include the medical records. Do you need the medical? No, we don't need the medical records. We just need. It's like, what the hell? And it almost seemed like it was just completely arbitrary the way that they deny some of these. And we'd see the same things over and over. And certain payers, and it's so ironic that we call them payers. It's like a joke. That it's a dirty game. So I'm sitting there and I'm daydreaming, as I often did when I'm on hold, because I was on hold a lot. And I was trying to think of ways that we could move the needle from a revenue perspective. We could generate more revenue for our doctors and our groups that didn't have anything to do with billing. The company I was aligned with did a great job at collecting something like 89 cents on the dollar. Over 90s were super lean. It was a really efficient machine. And medical billing is interesting. It's kind of like the analogy I love is it's kind of like the light in your refrigerator. All you really need to know is that when you open your refrigerator, the light comes on. And it's only a problem when the light doesn't come on. But when the light doesn't come on, it's too late. Right. So it's kind of like, if you know that there's a problem with your billing, like, shit, how much? Like, what? Huh? So, but I digress. So I'm daydreaming and I'm trying to think of ways. And from a technical standpoint, the revenue cycle actually starts when a patient is with the physician, and they chart the visit and they create a super bill after the visit, and the super bill goes out to the clearinghouses. It gets scrubbed for modifiers and whatever, and it goes out to the insurance companies to get paid. And I'm thinking about this and I'm like, it doesn't really, that's on paper when the revenue cycle starts. And I rewound it just a little bit to when that patient actually decides that they need care. And if we can control or influence or compel this person who needs care to seek it over here, and if we can do this in a measurable and meaningful way, we might have something here. So, revenue cycle background, my one of my partners, he is a medical device rep. He was actually my father's first business partner way back in the day. Got to start with a little company called Medtronic. He sold TENS units, transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulators. Pretty cool stuff. This is back in the early 80s. And my other partner is a healthcare data and analytics expert. So we put our heads together and we thought this consumer data angle could be the play, because we're looking for something that was direct, right? Proactive, and something that we could measure, and not something where it's just like the general digital marketing tactics where you just spend money and you hope it's done right and you hope it works, and then you know it doesn't on the back end, or that it does on the back end, and maybe it does work. So we started playing around with this, and this flagship client of ours, we started with them, and we fell up the stairs a number of times, and we made some mistakes, and we learned, and we paid attention to the data, and we learned things like something we came up with called the patient's educational burden. Sounds pretty daunting. It's not, I promise. The patient's educational burden speaks to a certain procedure, right, that might have a longer runway, more of an educational burden, a higher educational burden, something like spine ailments or total joints. These people are in pain. They might be in pain for a long time before they decide to get care. A procedure with or a service line with a shorter educational burden or a lower patient's educational burden, pediatric orthopedics. You have a parent who has a very acute need for their child. Sports medicine. You have a patient who has an acute need. They need to know that their pain is going to be addressed at a certain time today so they can get on with their lives, hopefully out of pain. And what we learned from this patient's educational burden concept is that for campaigns like sports medicine and pediatric ortho, the greater the audience size, the greater the yield. Every time. The more people we are communicating in our audience, the more people actually come in for a consult. And we can come up with a catchy name for what that's called, some kind of a law or effect. But I think it speaks to the person's pain and how badly do they need care. So, we keep that in mind. And if we're executing a pilot program for a new client, doing it in a total joint with a total joint campaign, we can do that in 90 days and we can show you meaningful results. But if you do sports medicine and you're real good at it, and like that's kind of what you're known for, like we could do some real damage. And our pilot programs are designed so that our clients, they can try us out for the lowest amount possible, but still see meaningful results. We like to have there be like a break even in a doomsday scenario. Let's say we drive 150 patients to your door. The doomsday scenario is that if each one of those 150 patients only comes in for that initial visit, we really want you to break even on the whole program. Now, the profits come in the episodic nature of it and the treatment cycle, and you got the prehabs and you got the pre-surgeries and the surgery, of course, and then the rehabs and the post-op care. So we can't identify people who will end up in the OR. We just are. That's not how our data works. But we can fill the calendar and pack the funnel with highest likelihood, high value patients that, sure, some will definitely end up in your operating room.
So when you're,
I like that.
Yeah, you did scare him. Yeah, when you say that you have, that long, microphone. That long education burden, what are you doing to combat that? Because I'm assuming it's some sort of inbound marketing where you're educating the patient and you're putting stuff out there that make them feel more comfortable or more confident in getting spine surgery or total joint surgery, but like what is your typical recommendation for that?
So I think that the differentiators, and look, as of right now, all of our clients are private practices.
Yep.
So they're a lot more nimble. They can make decisions a little quicker, and they're more open to, doing something a little different. At least the ones who we're talking to are, which is good, and they should be. Connection and differentiating and using thoughtful video and getting out of we have the best doctors, we have the best care, we have the best technology, and we have, paying attention to the patient experience. Do you have an online booking portal? Does it work effectively? Do you have a digital triage or a digital front door where a patient can learn more about my pain, which in turn gets the patient to buy in digitally with their information and their data about their pain? The patient gets to learn a little bit more about what might be the causes, and the practice gets to take advantage of efficiencies at scale. And what that means is that if not every patient needs to see the specialist, depending on their pain. And if you know that ahead of time, then you just schedule the PA, and the last thing you want is to have, your hotshot surgeon doing $50 injections all day long. But the only way to know that is to get the data on the front end. So some practices, and we don't like to create barriers to entry. We could tweak it for a year before it's ready to launch. We want to do this. And if our client has what they need, if they have a performing site or landing page, we don't do content. We don't do websites. We don't do reputation. All we do is, this hyper-targeted patient acquisition. So and we're not interested in making a round peg fit in a square hole. It should just work. And a lot of that has to do with expectations, right? And some of the failures that we've had is when we set the expectations pretty high based on previous experiences that our clients have had, like those numbers that you shared, and like other clients expect that. We have nothing to do with converting people into patients. And maybe we will at some point, but we don't right now. So again, if you're going to spend money on a marketing program, have your house be clean and tidy and your systems and your workflows tight so that you're not wasting money running expensive water through a hose that has holes in it, right?
So it's a great analogy, but explain that even deeper, because you mean like if we bring patients to your front door and you can't handle it, or you don't answer the phone, or you're like, which we see in a lot of these things. It doesn't matter how good we are. You're not going to see the benefits of this because your portal is painful to use, right? Your experience is lousy for the patient, and you're going to get a diminished return on that. Is that, I mean, you describe it better than I do, but that's sort of how I'm sensing this.
Cope, you hit the nail on the head. Again, if I need to know that I can be seen today and I'm on hold for 6 minutes getting through your IVR, your phone triage, and when the person does answer, and I'm not saying this happens, this is just an example. Like, we've done due diligence before where I'll secret shop and I'll call and try to book an appointment. I want to know what the patient's going to experience. Yeah. And if the phone's answered by someone who could care less and they're low energy and they're not able to answer my questions, and it's or it's a mess over there, it's okay, this is not I'm not there's plenty of places where I can go and have a good experience, and also get some relief in the process. In hospitality, they're called gold star moments. And it's any instance where a staff member has any interaction with a guest. Now, this is hospitality. There is zero reason why this can't take place in healthcare. There is zero reason that healthcare can't exist the way Chick-fil-A does, and everything is my pleasure, and things just work, and it's efficient and effective, and the patients feel like their time is not only valued, but that they are in good hands, and they feel confident about the care they're receiving, not some roundabout rigmarole of billing or paying a bill and having to mail a check, or whatever the headaches are of the modern day private practice. They don't need to be. But again, I'm not here to solve every problem, and I'm very, very clear that we're talking about private practice healthcare. Everybody on staff is wearing at least 3 or 4 hats. Everybody's being pulled in multiple directions, and I think that I see it most. These holy shit, what is this healthcare? Because this is a pleasure when the leadership is right and the clinicians are able to do their jobs, and when the doctors and surgeons are able to do their jobs and not be overburdened with charts or billing or learning a new EHR, or things just work the way they're supposed to, and they're able to see and treat patients. And maybe that's a utopia, and maybe I'm a little crazy in thinking that it can exist, but I've seen it before, and it's pretty nice and surprising. I hate that it's surprising.
Yeah. I love it, and I think.
Did I just blow your mind, Cope? Did I just?
No. It's funny because we interviewed somebody several weeks ago, Emily Spooner, owner of an ambulatory surgery center in Florida. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating person.
I know exactly who you're talking about. I love that episode, by the way. Yeah.
Oh,
and the story is fantastic, phenomenal. Like where she came from, and
right?
I love it.
And one of the things she said that Ryan and I were sort of talking about afterwards is she walks around and explains things in her surgery center for the layperson, like the emergency crash cart or malignant hypothermia, right? And she says, well, here's why we have this, because this, and it makes people a little bit more comfortable in a way I would not have anticipated. Just the common person who's going to come in for a knee scope, right? Whatever. But she said it helps them educate people the same questions. They get the same questions all the time, and they can watch that. But she also said, it helps us explain to people. So because you can get malignant hypothermia or be a difficult airway, that's the reason why you can't eat 8 hours before your surgery. So they don't have to, people are like, oh, it's a great way to educate patients in something you have to, if they eat, surgery's canceled, right? And so,
right. But I think
this is happening in healthcare.
It's the process of the education. It doesn't have to be like some sheet that they hand you and say, go over it or read this sheet, and you're like, oh, oh man. I think it's instilling a level of confidence in your patients by knowing your role and making someone feel comfortable about being in a pretty uncomfortable scenario. I don't know too many people who are looking forward to any type of surgical procedure. And so connecting with a human being and learning something that I don't know, but that whether I need to know that or not, that would make me feel good. I know I'm not, a sample size of 1 is not scientific, but I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. I love it. Rye, do you have anything else for Seth before we let him and his magnificent mustache go?
I
just as he hides.
Thank you. Ryan, next time I see you, I think you should grow one. I think you'd look really good.
I can grow one. It just doesn't look like yours. It just looks like a caterpillar kind of on my face.
Ryan, I used to be just like you.
And now
and then I took these pills.
And for our listeners who are listening, right, he has a magnificent Raleigh Fingers handlebar mustache. Seth, this has been awesome. Dude, I loved it. I knew this would be interesting. I knew I'd learn a bunch of things. And, you and I have talked a lot offline, and I think what you're doing is fascinating. And I actually think it's effective. And, some of my really, really, really close friends are private practice orthopods, right? And they worry about this constantly, and they don't know exactly how to attack it. And it's funny. I actually think it takes 7 touches of education for them to understand what you do. It's not that different, right? And if this helps people understand us a little bit better that are potential end users for you, I think it's good. We don't have a business relationship or anything like that. I just think what you do is fascinating, and it's a unique way to do something that's done in other industries to a much greater extent into healthcare, right? I mean, it's not like you guys are doing something really innovative, but it's taking things that are being done in other arenas and just applying it to a very focused part of healthcare, which I think is really cool. Right. Did you have anything else for our friend Seth?
And look, we all.
No, I got nothing for him. He's great.
Go ahead, Seth.
Nothing?
I mean, I
That's all right. That's all right.
No, just yell at me. It's okay. Let's do it. Let's air it out.
Busy growing a mustache.
Yeah, right now. I'm just jealous of you and Cope. I mean, that's all it is. Right.
What are you talking about? You get to work with this guy all the time. I have to book an appearance on the show so I can talk to him.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Or I just see him in the comments. I just see him in the comments on LinkedIn. Yeah, I was mentioning you, Cope, to my wife, and I was like, "Oh, one of my colleagues. He's more of a friend." And she goes, "LinkedIn." So she gets on. She's like, "They can't be friends." I'm like, I totally disagree with you. They can't be, because look, yeah.
We're going to prove her.
I'm happy
wrong,
for you both.
Seth.
Okay.
That's what we're.
We are. And
right.
We're going to continue. And Ryan will be there and cheering us on. It's going to be great.
Seth, I probably should have done this right before we got into the yucks there. But if people want to get in touch with you, we'll put it in the show notes. How do they get in touch with you? What's your website? Where do you want them to go?
Sure. The website's custommedicalmarketing.com. I am Seth at custommedicalmarketing.com. If you are bold enough, you can even call me at 850-BUG-SETH. You can also text her. But just tell me who you are, because I'm just going to send you to junk otherwise and be like, what? No, I don't know. You just be like, oh, I heard you on Cope's show and you gave me your number. So I bet Michael Nelligan, he'll call or text me. He did that one time. He called me out of the blue. I messaged him on LinkedIn and I'm like, well, just call me and see. We were talking about Hall & Oates or something. And I told him I'd sing him Sarah Smile. And he called me up and I picked up the phone and I started singing it to him. And so we have that forever, Michael and I.
I like
fun
that.
story. It could have been you,
like
Cope.
that.
It could have been you. I'll pick out a nice song for you sometime.
Well, I actually appreciate that. And by the way, you should follow Seth Turnoff on LinkedIn, if for no other reason than he's funny at least once a day. And sometimes that's all we all need. It's just a good yuck.
It's a lot of
every day.
It's a lot of pressure. And can I speak to that real quick, Cope? I just want to say that, look, when I started posting on LinkedIn, I didn't want it to feel like work. And I believe in the value of edutainment. And I am in a position where I can actually have my own voice and say whatever I want about the company that I run. And there's tremendous freedom in that. But Cope, you just put a lot of pressure on me, which I think I can deliver.
I think you can handle it.
I'm going to add a drum.
I think you have what it takes.
Yeah.
Prove me right, Seth. All right, man.
Yeah, I'll always try. I will always try.
We can kill it right if you want.
Yeah, I got it.
Or we'll edit it out. All right, Ryan. Now, I'm a sucker for anybody who's funny. And anybody who says his phone number is 1-800-BUG-SETH is going to make me laugh. But he's a marketing guy. You're a marketing expert. What'd you take away from this second part of his interview?
I thought the interesting thing from this interview was Seth talking about the patient educational burden, which is not so different than what I would probably call the buyer's journey. They're drastically different, but they're actually very similar. if that makes any sense.
No, in what way? Explain that.
So, right, when you look at like a regular person buying something, we'll use you for an example. Let's say you're looking to buy a new Hyundai Elantra, because that's what I see you driving in my mind, right?
Wonderful vehicle.
If you're buying a Hyundai Elantra because your current Hyundai is on its last leg, but it isn't done yet, and you're looking at different cars. What does Toyota have? What does Honda have? What about this Chevy Impala that I see? Right, you're going to take your time. You're going to go through a buyer's journey. You're going to educate yourself. You're going to learn more about it, and then you're eventually going to make a purchase. Hopefully before your current car takes a dive, right? That's how Seth looks at like total joints and spine, right? There's a longer buyer journey. You're going to have to go through some more things before you actually make a decision and go see a doctor, right? I jokingly said to you, you're going to limp around your house until your wife yells at you and goes, "Will you please go get your knee checked out, please?"
It's as if you have a hidden microphone in my house.
I don't. I can profile you, right? You'll deal with it for like years, and that's what Seth calls a longer patient educational burden. A patient like you is going to have a longer educational burden until you make a decision, right? But if your car, we'll go back to the other example, gets in a car accident, you got to make a decision ASAP. Right. So you will have a very short buyer journey because you need to fix your immediate need. Same thing goes for when Seth talks about a short patient educational burden is for acute pain. So, you have daughters. One of your daughters slips and falls and hurts her wrist. Like, you're a great dad. You're going to be on your phone looking for care near me right now, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a very short patient educational burden, right? So taking that into consideration, I think it's something that Seth describes and talks about how he talks with the private practices and surgeons that he works with and helps them understand that, like, hey, we're going to try to get results as soon as possible. But you got to understand that there's an educational burden for different types of patients, right? And that patient educational burden is a great way to describe it. I also love, because I'm going to give Seth a plug because I like him, I thought it was pretty cool that his group, clearly can identify patients to decisions being made, right? That they can actually tie that data and show you, they do it in a blind way, but no patient data is compromised, but like, hey, we brought you 125, we targeted this group of 10,000 people. We brought you 125 people and they led to this, this, and this. If you go to Seth's website, there's a lot of data to back up and he has some case studies. So I think that's pretty cool of his group because most marketing groups don't do that. They just go, they go like 15x ROAS, return on ad spend, right?
I didn't even know what that meant.
And you're just like, cool. Should it be 20?
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and that's why you're the marketing guru on this Sutures and Cents podcast.
By the way, 15x ROAS is very good.
Just for
people in the comments sounding off going, I wish I had that.
Yeah. I love it. Listen, it was a great interview with him, Brian. I loved your comments on it because you understand it so much better than I do. And we're going to, hopefully our next guest can have a mustache like him. I don't know if that's possible, but listen, because all bleeding stops eventually applies to both surgical patients and healthcare balance sheets. We'll see you next time on Sutures and Cents.
Peace.